And here we are. I am live. I hope you can hear me. We had some last minute audio glitches right before I came to air. So hopefully all things are good. We're using the computer microphone as opposed to, the fancy microphone here on the Trish Regan show today. It is good to see so many of you. I was just looking in the chat before we came to air. Yes, we're getting closer and closer to 1 million subs. It's pretty incredible. And we've got an incredible news cycle. Think about everything that's happening right now, just breaking today, for example. I mean, this is truly amazing. It looks like all of this stuff that we thought was going to happen is starting to happen. You've got what? Oh, Mr. Shifty's Schiff kind of freaking out because it looks like he is actually going to be under criminal investigation, Let me correct myself. So that news just breaking within the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, you've got a DOJ investigation going on as far as the Russian interference. Remember how they tried to do a big song and dance for how long?
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election. And he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Yeah, we know. You told us that over and over again. Well, now it seems that there may be a little bit of accountability coming forward. And a few people, including one Rachel Maddow over at NBC, are totally freaking out that the grand jury investigation has been announced. Pam Bondi has named someone secret to be running this grand jury investigation. So we're going to get to that. We're going to also get to the markets because India just got hit with a 50% tariff. And it has to do with some of the exclusive reporting I did for you here from Ireland about the particular ships that were in the Irish Sea, that the Irish were like, wait a second, what is going on? Because it turns out those are what they call shadow ships, and they were actually Russian oil tankers that were making their route to India through the Irish Sea. So just an unbelievable story. We're going to get to all that. You got markets that are on fire despite all of this news, right? All of this news regarding Adam Schiff, regarding Hillary and Bill, who, by the way, Comer has subpoenaed them as well. So, they're getting subpoenaed up the wazoo along with everybody else. And no wonder now we know why they really, really, really did not want Donald Trump to win. But he won, and there he is. And now the grand jury has been convened. The Clintons are getting subpoenaed, both of them actually, one by Comer, one by Pam Bondi, and now we got a full-blown DOJ investigation. This is big stuff. Comer, of course, coming out within the last 24 hours mentioning that he is subpoenaing a whole list of characters, right? You got Hillary Clinton in there, you got former President Bill Clinton, you've got Merrick Garland, you've got James Comey, you've got William Barr, you've got Alberto Gonzales, you've got Jeff Sessions, Robert Mueller, who, according to a report out of Paul Sperry at Real Clear Politics, gosh, poor Mueller apparently is in some kind of dementia care, memory care situation, and has been for a bit. You got Loretta Lynch, you've got Eric Holder. I mean, this is going to be good. And by the way, just take a look at those dates, everyone. I mean, this is going to be what we call a jam-packed summer. No vacation for anyone. Plus, fall. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuning in right now. Thank you for your generosity and for all your comments and your subscriptions. Good to have everybody here. We weren't on just yesterday, you'll recall. Peace of my mind was looking for me. And I'm back. I'm here. Little travel snafu, but back in the seat again. I just want to share with you something that Tulsi Gabbard said to my former colleague, Laura. I believe she was on with Laura, yes, over at Fox just last night. So Tulsi is pretty upset because if you consider the way the media has treated this entire story, they've treated it as though it's fiction. They've chosen not to cover it. And then when they did start covering it, they covered it really aggressively as though it was a whole bunch of lies. I mean, we've been there, done that, seen that before, have we not? And now I think there is accountability coming into play. And she's clearly, if you listen to Tulsi, frustrated with the media. I want to play this soundbite for you. Let's listen in.
They're using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents a couple of weeks ago. They tried to ignore it. When they realized that they weren't going to get away with this, that this story was going to continue breathing life life. We continued releasing new documents. Then they decided, oh, we'll take this approach and say, oh, this is nothing. There's nothing really to see here. This is bizarre. This is a conspiracy. These are the things that they do over and over and over again. And the next step they will take when they feel that they are not succeeding in getting rid of this truth that we have uncovered for the American people, then they will go down the route of we must destroy and smear and attack the credibility of those who are delivering the truth to the American people. They've done this to President Trump. They've done this to me. They've done this to so many different people, once again, who are trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Wow. Okay, right? That makes sense. You've got a media system that's kind of rigged and set up to help one side, and they've always been on that side. And then all of a sudden the outsider comes along. And by the way, think about it like this. It's not just that they're there to help the left, which they are, because most of them are a bunch of lefties that are in the media. It's also that they're there to help whoever is in establishment. So you get somebody like an outsider, Donald Trump, coming along, and people don't know what to make of that, right? Even go all the way back. They weren't very nice to Reagan, right, or Bush, because they were on the wrong side as far as many in the media were concerned. But they weren't as hostile, and I think part of that is because they still saw Reagan, they saw Bush as, you know, in the inner circle. But this businessman who comes along, I mean, much like Ross Perot, they really didn't like Ross Perot very much either, and says, hey, we're going to shake things up. We're going to do things in a more efficient way. He's the outsider. He's from completely outside their set of circle. I mean, it's not just the fact that he's on the other team, but the fact that he's not part of their system as they know it. That's part of what has created this meltdown. And it's been a meltdown that's been ongoing. And I'm sort of like, I've been on the sidelines, or in it, obviously. You know, we're on the front lines. I shouldn't say some sidelines. We're on the front lines of history here. But from day one, when he first went down the escalator, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Now let me see his tax plan. And I read the tax plan. Every little last bit of it, because I'm wonky enough to do that kind of stuff, guys. I do this so you don't have to. Anyway, I was like, wow, this is a good tax plan. I like this tax plan. Tell me more. And so I think he's had the right economic plan. And you just look at the markets today, even in light of the tariffs that he may be putting on India, they're 50%. Markets are still higher. And so why is it that people are still so resistant and they hate him so much? I mean, that in and of itself is getting really weird. And you look at, for example, NBC's MSNBC. What am I saying? NBC can't wait to get rid of her. They're like, please take her. Get her out of town. Rachel Maddow had like a complete meltdown, a total meltdown on MSNBC last night. She's flipping out. Well, I guess it was Monday night, flipping out because there will be accountability. And for her, that's nothing short of a dictatorship. Right, because she's the one who spun all those lies over and over and over again, took you down that crazy rabbit hole. Let's take a look at one Rachel Maddow.
And, you know, listen, you can narrow or widen the aperture as much as you want. You can look at the very big picture or the small local picture anywhere in the country. And we try to do as much of both of those things as we can every week here on this show. But whether you're looking at small-scale local stories or the biggest picture stories about what's happening in our country, the story is the same, and it is now an undeniable thing. We have crossed a line. We are in a place we did not want to be, but we are there. The thing we were all warning about for the last few years is not coming, it is here. We are in it. This is what it likes, it turns out. This is what it's like, right? I mean, it's August, it's a Monday, every day the sun rises and the sun sets, and there are, you know, sports and movies, and there are new hit songs, there are scandals here and there are crimes. There's everybody's personal quotient of family drama and health worries and money worries and falling in and out of love and in and out of faith. Life has not stopped, and none of our personal lives have stopped. But also at the same time, life in the United States.
She goes on to tell you, this is a full-blown dictatorship. And it's a dictatorship because you see the guy that she doesn't like is actually doing what he needs to do to make sure that doesn't happen to anybody again. I mean, shouldn't an outsider be able to, you have to be an insider, shouldn't an outsider be able to run for president of the United States and win? And why should they be met with hostility at every single turn? And you guys know it. It was really bad. So now he's like, okay, I get you right where I want. By the way, just my point on poor Rachel Maddow. I'm not kidding. Like, NBC really can't wait to get rid of her. They had their earnings call last week. And the key quote from that one was, after the Versant, it's actually Versant, spin, it will then have a media business, this is the CEO, made up of NBC, Broadcast, Bravo, Telemundo, as well as Peacock, that are completely symbiotic, leveraging the strengths of entertainment, the entertainment business, both in scripted and reality entertainment, as well as sports and news. In other words, they are so psyched to have this new media company that is divorced from one Rachel Maddow and company over at MSNBC, because she's clearly just shown herself to be a tremendous liability. Plus, she costs $25 million reportedly a year. So somehow she's managed to squeeze that out of them. But they're not squeezing any ratings out of her, even that lone show one Monday night. Anyway, none of this should come as a surprise to one Rachel Maddow or anyone else, frankly, because first time around, he was Mr. Nice Guy. And then he had 4 years to sit on the sidelines and basically, ran the risk of being thrown in jail for the rest of his life or bankrupted for the rest of his life. Letitia James, thank you very much. And by the way, what is that case still doing in the Court of Appeals in New York? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But here's Donald Trump making it clear on Newsmax. He was nice to Hillary first time around. He didn't want to have to go where he's going right now. But he doesn't really have a choice given what they've done. Watch. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. So his point is, in order to stop this, you have to make it very, very clear that it can never happen again. So any of the leniency that he gave Hillary Clinton first time around because he didn't want to be like a banana republic, he's now like, well, wait a second, we're a banana republic. For goodness sake, she was the one, don't forget, who was telling Biden to dig in no matter what. I'll never forget that one. She went on her former press person's podcast and was saying ahead of the election in 2020, dig in, like no matter what. If it's close, you hang on for dear life. So she was willing to go there. I mean, we know they were willing to go there. Just consider that montage I played you earlier in the show that began with, Carter and went on to Hillary. I didn't play the whole thing for you because you're probably sick of it by now, but we know, what the heck. A little bit more for you. You know what I'm talking about.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see it as president.
Boom, boom, boom. Again, I'm not going to torture you. You can find that online. There's actually a full 20 minutes of it. I have the 10-minute version downloaded on my computer. But it's really remarkable because they went so far out to convince you of something that wasn't true. And now Trump's coming back and saying, hey, you know what? It was a hoax. We need accountability. You know what else is interesting? If you listen to that soundbite that I played for you on Newsmax, he made the point that they're still out there perpetuating this nonsense. And the fact that they're still doing that, that's actually a really important little nugget for you to think about. Because a lot of people have said, okay, well, wait a second, is the statute of limitations going to come into play here? And Stephen Miller, who is a brilliant guy and very good on constitutional law, et cetera, he's a big part, I think, of why you're seeing so much happen right now. And we are seeing a tremendous amount happen. Anyway, Miller is saying, no. The statute of limitations, it's not over because they've continued to perpetuate this nonsense as much as they can about the Russians. Here he is speaking with Maria Bartiromo. Watch.
Hour and the moment for accountability so that we can reclaim this democracy, Maria.
Well, do you believe we will actually get accountability? We've been demanding accountability now for a decade. Our audience is well aware that this is the biggest political scandal we have ever seen, and an effort to undermine and take down a duly elected president. But now we want to see the tricksters face the consequences. Will they?
I have complete confidence in the Department of Justice to follow these facts, to follow this new, further avalanche of evidence, and to take all the necessary legal steps to ensure that the wrongdoers The coup plotters, the schemers, and the insurrectionists are held fully accountable under the laws and Constitution of these United States. Yes, Maria, I believe that.
Now, last weekend, John Ratcliffe, CIA director who is a former prosecutor, former DNI, told us that the statute of limitations, the 5-year statute, does not apply when it comes to conspiracy. And he says the conspiracy is ongoing because they still won't admit it. The conspiracy is still happening. So what is your take on what Ratcliffe told us last week?
Oh, he's completely right. So several of the statutes I mentioned, we have not even come close to eclipsing the statute of limitations. But more than that, it is an ongoing and continuing conspiracy. It continued through the entirety of President Trump's first term. It continued through the entirety of President Biden's term in office. And it continues to this day. There are still deep state coup plotters who are trying to conceal and hide this information on behalf of the people they are protecting. There are still staffers in Democrat offices who know the full truth, who are concealing that truth. So all of this behavior, all of this conduct collectively means the conspiracy hasn't ended, is ongoing. Comey, in particular, has throughout the years engaged in conduct and lies, public statements, and testimony in front of Congress. False testimony, whose sole purpose was to perpetuate and continue the conspiracy. So I have every hope and expectation that the Department of Justice, under the leadership of our courageous Attorney General, will follow these facts and follow the evidence and deliver justice. Because if we have a country where we can continue to have FBI careerists and CIA careerists, deep staters, who will fabricate and doctor evidence, who will create and produce fake material, fabricated material, phony information to try to go after their political enemies up to and including the president. If we continue to create the impression and the reality that there is not a criminal, a severe criminal penalty for such conduct, it will never stop. It will never desist. It will keep on going forever. And we will continue to have a country that is sabotaged endlessly by the production of fake documents, fake material, fake plots against democratically elected officials. We can't have that. There must be consequences.
Well, I mean, it's just extraordinary to me that the mainstream media has completely...
Yeah, she goes on to say what I was saying earlier. The mainstream media has completely ignored this story. And Trump's out there saying, hey, you can't ignore it. You need to actually pay attention to this. It goes back to, for example, what we saw from Tulsi Gabbard saying, the reason they're ignoring it is because they were part of it effectively. And I think that that's a fair assumption to make. Trump, again, all over social media, demanding accountability. I just think it's got to happen. Again, thanks to Xbox. Again, for your generosity. And we had somebody else who told me they were heading to my hometown this weekend. So that's great to hear. It's a great little town. I'll tell you guys, though, you have so much that went down and so much that I think should have been coming out earlier on, and accountability should have been there. Now, he's not willing to play games anymore. So you have a team of people that are very ready, willing, and able to indict. And that means Hillary Clinton. It means everybody associated with Barack Obama. I mean, he may get off because he's former president and the Supreme Court ruled on that vis-a-vis Trump. But Charlotte, thank you. Let me get to your comment in a minute. But first, here's Radcliffe, the CIA director, saying, yeah, indictments are coming.
So what I think I hear you saying is there is still an opportunity for indictments, potential prosecutions, accountability from those people who may have lied under oath, like John Brennan, James Comey, and perhaps Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's why I've made the referrals that I have. DNI Gabbard has made referrals. Yeah. And why we're going to continue to share the intelligence that would support the ability of our Department of Justice to make bring fair and just claims against those who have perpetrated this hoax against the American people and this stain on our country.
Director, one other question on this. Tulsi, as well as President Trump, used the word
treason. Treason is what she went on to say. Charlotte, thank you. Charlotte's noticing the volume is a little low. It's because I'm using the computer today, because I'm traveling, and these are the unfortunate things that happen sometimes when you're traveling. So if you guys can turn the volume up on your computer or on your television, that would be great and much appreciated. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And thank you, Charlotte, for that observation. In the meantime, they also say they have more stuff coming out, right? That's part of what came out recently with the burn bags that were quoted by Kash Patel, who said he had a whole room in the Hoover building filled with more evidence. And then Radcliffe went on with Trey Gowdy. Fox is getting all the attention, I guess, Fox and Newsmax, right? Because they're the only ones covering it outside of those of us over here in the podcast universe. Anyway, Trey Gowdy interviewing Radcliffe, and Radcliffe said, look, there's a whole lot more. So again, I would just say, Hillary, Obama cronies, watch out, listen.
Is there more to come from either you or FBI Director Patel? Are there more shoes to drop that we should be looking for?
Yeah, there are, Trey. So, people need to understand that, there is no Russia collusion hoax file cabinet at the FBI or at the CIA. We have to look for these documents, sometimes that are well hidden. You have to go trace through emails and look for signs and clues that would point you to. That's how I found John Brennan's notes, and that's how we found additional documents. I've talked with FBI Director Patel. He and I will be declassifying additional documents that show just how sinister the FBI was in amplifying Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier as real and credible to be included in the intelligence community assessment, but also in how they buried the counterintelligence referral memo that I mentioned before, how they went to great lengths to try and keep that out of the intelligence community assessment. So there will be more to come, and I think that people should expect that the Trump administration will continue to shed transparency and light and truth, again, because, Trey, there is no question, this was the greatest political scandal of our lifetime. No one wants to see this happen again. It derailed our country. It derailed President Trump's presidency, his first 4 years in office. And it really is a stain on our country that should never happen again. And Donald Trump is committed to making sure that it doesn't.
Okay. He's right. It cannot happen again, period. End of story. And, there's going to be consequences for it. But, guys, maybe you should have thought of that. I've said this, and I'll say it again. It's like, when you have a team that loses and a team that wins in any athletic competition. Everybody goes up and shakes hands after, and it's all good, right? We're one country, one nation under God. The United States of America is, and it should be each party helping one another in terms of the transition. Instead, they just resisted, and that's coming back to bite them big time. I want to give a shout out to one of our great sponsors here. I'm able to bring you this show from all over the world for free. Big story coming up I want to tell you about related to those India tariffs today out of Ireland, related to the Irish Sea and the oil tankers that have been traveling through them as shadow tankers. But before I do that, Balance of Nature, one of our great sponsors here. You can get 35% off. Use code word Trish. Give them a ring, 1-800-246-8751. It's really important to me what I eat, what my kids eat, what my family eats. And you know what? That doesn't stop when I take my vitamins, because what's in the vitamin counts too. In other words, you don't want any of those fillers, you don't want any of the weird things. And so one of the great things about Balance of Nature is that they have never had any of those weird things in it. It's all good, healthy ingredients. So I encourage you to take a look at these guys, balanceofnature.com. They have thousands of testimonials on their website. They have so many different products. I take the fruits and veggies. That way I make sure I get my fruits and veggies some way or another, right? But you can get 35% off with my code Trish. You're helping the show. You're helping yourself. 1-800-246-8751 today. I will get to the oil tankers, but before I do, boy, oh boy, Texas is on fire. My gosh. All kinds of stuff going on down there in Texas. Jasmine Crockett, along with her fellow Democrats, just decides not to show up and somehow forfeits her gig. That's what the governor of Texas is saying right now. The governor is like, okay, you guys are out. You cannot just not show up for work. Like that's not how it works. I get it. You didn't want the redistricting that we were about to engage in, but instead of coming and talking to us and voting on it, you just leave. You flee to Illinois. And so now Texas is moving to arrest any Democrats who fled the state as well as any Democrats who stayed behind. So if you're a representative from Texas right now and you're somehow involved in this and you've refused to show up and vote on this redistricting, well, they're going to go after you. It's a big deal. Here is the governor speaking about his intention and what he would do with anyone that was just there in the state that he can get his hands on. He says they're out looking. They're out looking for him as we speak.
So that is correct. And, Will, as we're talking right now, Texas Department of Public Safety officers are on the streets looking for those Democrat House members to arrest them and to take them to the Texas Capitol and hold them there until a quorum is reached.
All right. And then, and that may, I'm not sure how many, can you tell me how many different representatives that we're talking about are in the state of Texas? I believe you're 6 short right now of a quorum.
I just want to stop that for just a second, guys, because that's like a big deal, what Abbott just said. He said that they are out looking for them right now, and they will arrest them. So I think it took the anchor just a minute to process that. Okay, so you're going to arrest them. Wow. And then what happens? Do you haul them in and say, okay, you know, we need to have a quorum. We need to have enough of you here. Let's listen to the rest of it.
Quorum. Would that number bring you to a quorum?
So that's the fact that we don't know yet. We don't know which Democrats remain in the state who are not yet identified. We don't know exactly how many are out of state. But know this also, Will, and that is the Texas Department of Public Safety is also working with officials in other states to find ways in which we can try to arrest the Texas Democrat members in other states and bring them back to the state of Texas.
I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, this is absolutely nuts. It's like, guys, you could have avoided it if you just showed up for work. I mean, it's turned into a whole social media stunt that they've engaged in because they want to get attention on this one thing that they don't want to actually have to do. The answer is you got to win elections. So as far as Texas is concerned, they're kind of just all fired from their jobs. Here is the announcement on that watch.
The motion prevails. The Sergeant-at-Arms and any officers appointed by her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purposes of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrant of arrest if necessary until further order of the House. Members, under the rules, while the House is under a call, any member who wishes to leave the hall must have written permission of the Speaker. The chair is providing written permission to be entered in the journal for each member registered as present on today's roll call to leave the chamber and return tomorrow at 1 p.m. Please return at the appointed time. Mr. Guerin moves that the House stand adjourned until 1 p.m. Tuesday. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the House stands adjourned.
Okay, but they're still not there. They're still not there. So they don't have a quorum. And for some reason, they all think, the Democrats think this is fine. In fact, they're patting each other on the back. They think they're like total heroes for doing this. Jasmine Crockett's all over MSNBC. She actually admitted to something, saying that, you know, this is outside of redistricting. This is just requiring ID. She said that her numbers went down when they required ID. I'm like, oh, honey. That's not saying much for you and your numbers, right? But, I mean, she's on MSNBC complaining about this one. She let it slip. Here we go.
There was a benefit to shining a light on what it was that they were trying to do in the dark in Texas. So unfortunately, we've seen our numbers fall now that they have these voter restrictions in place. But I do think it's important for us to have the conversation around the...
Okay, you've seen your numbers fall. And you don't like that the redistricting is about to happen because, you know, I get it. It's not going to work out for you. I mean, you're going to be out one way or another, Jasmine Crockett. I think that's sort of the moral of the story on this one, regardless of what happens. Unless for some reason the Supreme Court makes some kind of decision that they can't do this, you're going to be perhaps redistricted out of your district. You know, when it's the other way around, we hear a very different chorus from these guys. It's all about representation and fairness and this, that, and the other. But when the Republicans come back and say, hey, we want some representation and fairness too, suddenly it's a dictatorship. That's where they're heading with all of this. Anyway, Jasmine's very upset.
I know that this legislature did ask us as members of Congress to confirm our addresses. I don't know how many of us actually still reside in the districts that we represent. I do not currently reside in my district based upon the plan that has been drawn, which is another red flag, in addition to courts consistently looking at how many people have been moved.
Yeah. Sorry. It was fun while it lasted, right? She's like their big new star. I mean, I think they'd be smart to get rid of her, honestly. I think this would actually be the Republicans doing the Democrats a favor. I mean, they'll take care of the little Jasmine Crockett problem before anybody else on the left needs to actually deal with it. If only that had been what went down with AOC, right? Maybe they wouldn't find themselves in the position they're in. Anyway, the Texas story is a big deal, and it's continuing to dominate the news cycle now because people are saying, hey, is this really going to be able to go through? I mean, it's an interesting sort of legal maneuver, if you would. I do think it's also a social media stunt of sorts, right? And this is something that another one of my former colleagues, gosh, we got a lot of my former colleagues on the air today. Anyway, Tommy Lahren made an interesting observation about it. I want to share it with you. Here we go.
First of all, the Democrat Party has been reduced to essentially a social media stunt at this point. That's the only way they can get any attention. It's not through legislation. It's not through ideas or policy. It's through stunts, whether it's getting arrested at a press conference or outside of an ICE facility or skipping work to go to Illinois. Also, the hypocrisy here for Democrats now to clutch their pearls when Republicans play the same way that they've been playing is really rich. Please spare me. Also incredibly hypocritical. Democrats had no problem for a 4-year span of time importing millions and millions of people into blue sanctuary states and cities to pad their numbers, to pad the census. But now they want to cry wolf and they want to cry crocodile tears because Republicans want to draw new maps in Texas. Democrats would do it every single time. They don't like it that Republicans are playing the same game. We learned from you. We're going to be cutthroat like Democrats, and we're going to win where we can.
Yeah, I mean, what I see is...
So, telling it like it is. She's a good egg. Anyway, the point is that they don't have really any which way to turn. They've lost this battle. They're very angry about it. So, sure, they're going to go and pull every stunt they possibly can. And, well, the GOP is doubling down. I mean, you heard Abbott saying, okay, if we find any... We're out looking right now. If we find any of you, that's it. Game over. You're being arrested. You're under civil arrest. You know who's not under civil arrest, but is actually under the real arrest, like the criminal arrest? Adam Schiff is now facing potential criminal arrest. There is a criminal investigation that has been confirmed. The U.S. Attorney's Office out of Maryland is actually investigating Schiff for alleged mortgage fraud. Shifty Shift, you know, he got the name for a reason, apparently, right? So this is a report from the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They sent this letter to the DOJ referring him for criminal prosecution because they're like, wait a second, why is it that Adam Schiff, the representative from California, is from California, but getting a deal on his Maryland property as though it's his primary residence? Because you kind of can't do that, right? That's Letitia James is being accused of a very similar thing. You can't do that because there's a different rate. If you would, you're actually going to save money if you declare it as your primary residence, because if it's your primary residence, the thinking is, you know what? Basically, you're going to pay that bill no matter what. Come hell and high water, you are going to continue to pay your mortgage for your primary residence. The vacation home, you know, if you're up against it, maybe you'll let that one slide. And so consequently, you will get a lower rate on something that is considered your primary residence. But here's the thing. If you're the congressman from California, then how is your primary residence in Maryland? It seems kind of basic, kind of simple. This is the letter. Let me quote from it. Based on media reports, Mr. Adam B. Schiff has in multiple instances, this is William Pulte writing, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms impacting payments from 2003 through 2019 for a Potomac, Maryland-based property. As regulator of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the FH loan banks, federal home loan banks, we take very seriously allegations of mortgage fraud or other criminal activity. Such misconduct jeopardizes the safety and soundness of FHFA's regulated entities and the security and the stability of the U.S. mortgage market. Now, he's not wrong about that because you know what? It's U.S. taxpayers who are effectively on the hook if Adam Schiff were to default on the mortgage, right? So part of having a system that works means everybody is truthful in how they approach this. But according to the FHFA, were not truthful. The Schiff family actually, and according to Donald Trump, who actually sent this out on social media the other day, somehow he got a copy of some of the mortgage documents, and he said, and I quote, Adam Schiff is a thief, he should be prosecuted just like they tried to prosecute me and everyone else. The only difference is we were totally innocent. It was all a giant hoax. Anyway, the DOJ has now officially launched that investigation, this getting confirmed by Laura Ingraham on her show last night. Let me show you a clip.
And tonight, an update on an Ingraham Angle exclusive, a Trump administration source telling the Angle that a criminal investigation of Adam Schiff is underway, conducted by U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland for possible charges involving mortgage fraud. Now, this follows the story we broke last month when the Federal Housing Finance Agency sent a criminal referral to the DOJ alleging that Schiff, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms. In a 2011 affidavit signed by the then California congressman, he certified that a property in Montgomery County, Maryland, is his primary residence. He also owns a condo in Burbank, California, which he's also claimed is his primary residence, and said so in 2023 during his campaign for Senate.
I think just about every member of Congress has a residence in their state and a residence back in D.C. since we're in session much of the week. And people make a family decision where they're going to have their kids. But our principal residence, our primary residence is in California. It always has been and always will be.
Ruh-roh. Well, Senator Schiff has not responded to us about these allegations, but we were able to find a statement that his campaign spokesperson gave to CNN back in 2023. She said that the Burbank condo is his primary residence, but Adams' California and Maryland addresses have been listed as primary residences for loan purposes because they're both occupied throughout the year and to distinguish them from a vacation property. Well, the law does not work that way. Let me just say that, but nice try. Look, it's anyone's guess what happens next.
And now his campaign person is on record saying he did this. And Laura's right. The law does not work that way. And you can't declare both of them as primary residences. I mean, it's like he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Shifty Schiff doing some shifty stuff. That is going to be a problem, okay? This is a criminal probe at this point. And, there was some question about the statute of limitations, but it looks like this is actually pretty recent. I mean, yes, in 2011, he was declaring the Maryland house as his primary residence. But now you're talking about documentation that's as recent as 2022. I think they have something from 2023, I believe. So these reports are adding up to a whole lot of problems. When this first came out, Adam Schiff, I don't think he knew what to do. And so he went and did this rambling social media thing. I'm going to show it to you in a second, where he just started attacking Trump. And, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Trump is saying this and that out of the Oval Office. Had nothing to do, really, with his mortgage concerns. Because don't forget, Trump had just sent this one out. President Trump had just sent this. Adam Schiff is a thief, and he had the mortgage document there to share with everyone. And Senator Schiff's response was this. Listen to this, guys, and tell me what you think about Adam Schiff's weak, weird response.
So I literally just got off the plane and, of course, read all the clips about what just took place in the Oval Office. I can't think of a more shameful display by a president of the United States in my lifetime. And when I think about all that the greatest generation did, the values that it fought for, when I think of what the country has stood for since, how we have defended democracy around the world, how we have come to the aid of our allies and friends, to see that all so shamefully betrayed is just heartbreaking. What will it take to awake the conscience of this country? Is this now what America is? We are reduced to some kind of a extortionary protectionist racket where a leader of a country whose citizens have fought and died valiantly standing up to a Kremlin dictator.
Oh my gosh, he's tough to take, right? Oh, it goes on and on. I mean, a criminal enterprise, a dictatorship. I just have to say, shifty shift, if that's really the way it is, and I know that's what you think, or maybe it's not even what you think. Maybe it's just what you've been told to think. It's just what you think is going to work from a political perspective. I would just say this. Why is it that Americans really seem to be with the president? Why is it that the Democrat brand is being seen, not in my words, but in the words of a CNN host, as garbage?
Particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
Yeah. And not only did he say they were effectively garbage, he went on to say that this president, President Trump, may go down in history as the most prolific president getting just stuff done more than anyone else. So this is profound. This is a CNN person saying this. Let's play it.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking in the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this. It's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of a larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this. How is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century, and to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year, and we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making. Love it, like it, or lump it.
I don't know how he showed his face at the office the next day, but anyway, Harry Anton admitting that indeed this presidency is likely the most influential, certainly in our generation, but most likely, you can go back all the way to FDR and you're not seeing anything like this. So it's pretty significant. And I think that's what scares the HLL, if you would, out of the likes of Adam Schiff. So this investigation now, criminal investigation, is underway into Adam Schiff. And, it's sort of amazing to me because it's like, buddy, you're saving like a half a point on your mortgage, right? I realize it adds up over time. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about saving every dime you can. But you don't do it by saying, I got 2 primary residences. You don't do it by saying my primary residence, when you are the representative from California, is in Maryland. So now again, the Maryland court has opened this criminal investigation. He joins Letitia. I believe it's Maryland that also has the Letitia James. So they're getting up to speed on their mortgage market stuff. If we can say that, right? They're really going to have to get in tune with how this mortgage market works. Anyway, you can't do that. And Adam Schiff is finding that out, perhaps the hard way. We'll see how these allegations turn out. Letitia James may also be finding out. We'll see what happens with her the hard way, just exactly how it's all going to go down. I mean, the markets have been crazy today, though. I will say this. The markets, even with everything that's going on with the tariffs, et cetera, you are seeing a lot of upside continue in these markets. And so it's really good to see that. It's really, really good to see that. Again, if I take a look at where we are right now, I mean, just again, up about 0.25% there on the Dow, 0.8% on the S&P, NASDAQ up 1.25%. You're seeing a lot of these gains because of what we saw from Apple today. So I don't know if you caught this, but Apple's putting another $100 billion into the U.S. And so they've already announced $500 billion, and now they're announcing another $100 billion. So again, this is the president that's getting stuff done. He wants the reinvestment happening here in America, all while simultaneously announcing perhaps more. Well, he did. He said India is going to be facing tariff hikes of 50%. This is pretty important because it has to do with Russia. We've got more on that coming. But first, remember what's going to happen with all this extra money that's coming in. This is what Donald Trump is talking about recently. He even floated the idea of a tax rebate. Imagine. Ooh, eat your heart out, Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, all of you.
Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms
The question
of all
is,
of that money? We're thinking about.
do you think there's a possibility of a rebate for the American people? And he said, yeah, we're thinking about it. And wow, you got yourself quite an answer there.
That actually, we have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate.
It could happen. It could happen. And guys, you know what? I hope you're investing. I hope you're investing. It's a big part of what I do. And you see me here on the show, but the other hat I wear is over at my financial research company, 76 Research. And you can get our report for $1 a month, just $1, DOLLAR. That's your code. Use my code for 76research.com. Use code word dollar. And for the first 2 months, you get it for $1 a month. And then it goes to $9.95 afterwards, $9.95. But hopefully, you're able to make some money. Our portfolios have all done exceptionally well. A lot of our stock picks have just been phenomenal. Really exciting stuff. You get all the information, all of it backdated. So you get the entire archive there. But those are our three big portfolios: an income builder, an American resilience portfolio, and an inflation protection portfolio. So do yourself that favor. Go over there and subscribe to my research. You look at, for example, all this optimism that's happening right now, and it's a pretty exciting time, right, to be in. I just got to say, before we get to some of the funny things that Russia's doing on the oil front, I got to tell you, I mean, these container ships getting spotted in the Irish Sea. This is a big deal, and Trump is acting on this. So a very, very big deal. It's just, I think, another reason why we need to make the case for more American, U.S.-based energy. I know everybody gets worked up about fracking, and fracking's, oh my gosh, it's terrible for the environment, this, that, and the other. But, before we kind of have all those complaints lodged, I think it's important to think about the other side of things. And when you consider the energy industry, you know what? Since 1980, global extreme poverty has plummeted from 42% to under 10%. Life expectancy, incomes have all soared. Part of that's because of, you guessed it, right? Energy. And fossil fuels. I mean, they're not all that bad. It happened because, you can actually power clean water systems, and you can actually power those supply chains for food, et cetera. So it's helped to drive all this industrial growth. So before they say, oh, we don't want any of it, it's like, wait a second. Isn't that industry itself sort of single-handedly helping to bring people out of poverty? I mean, shouldn't we want to reward that? Shouldn't we want more of that? Certainly here in the USA, I mean, for economic reasons, for national security reasons, I think, there's a whole other side of this. So I get that the activists want to blame fossil fuels for everything under the sun. But, if you look at the data, you can see a lot of other stuff. So it's really important to understand the full picture, to understand the entire story. I encourage you not to be fossil fueled. How do you like that? But to know your facts. Go to oilfacts.com. Oilfacts.com, one of the great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, and brought to you by the NASDAQ-listed Prairie Operating Company. It's a high-growth, low-cost producer of safe and responsible American energy. Oilfacts.com. I'll tell you, Donald Trump is now putting sanctions on India. And it has to do with the story I reported exclusively for you here on the Trish Regan Show just a few days ago. So I've been in Ireland, and right behind me, I actually showed you, although you couldn't actually see the water, unfortunately, it had to do with lighting. The water was the Irish Sea behind me. And in that Irish Sea, you've had somewhere around 19 oil tankers that have been sort of going as shadow tankers. They've been going illicitly, in a clandestine fashion, through the Irish Sea to make their way to India. These are Russian ships carrying natural gas. All right, so that's kind of a problem. Oil, natural gas, energy. And Ireland's concerned about it. Ireland's like, what are you doing? You see, they don't have the maritime capability that, say, the UK would or other places. And so consequently, they're more at risk, right? And Russia knows that. So they've taken these old ships, they typically buy them out of Greece, and then they do what's called changing flags. They try and register them through different LLCs, and they often, Panama's involved because, hey, Panama Canal. That's another reason, Pete Hegseth, everybody's like, why is he so obsessed with Panama? To have real global national security, you have to actually pay attention to Panama. So Panama registers a lot of these ships, so they change the flags, right, mid-sea. And so then they try and pass through something like the Irish Sea that doesn't have the same capability and wherewithal to detect these ships. So it's a big problem. Ireland's very worried about the environmental impact, and they're saying, hang on, we've sanctioned, there were 11 of these ships that they detected that had actually already been sanctioned. All right, so 11 of them. Turns out 19 of them had been sanctioned by us or the UK. So what were they doing in the Irish Sea, for goodness sakes? Well, they were trying to deliver energy to India, which is why today Donald Trump said, you know what? No more. You guys, we're not going to play that game. I've said that before. The only way these sanctions work or these tariffs really work is if you're willing to follow through. And if somebody breaks the rules, if India's like, oh no, we'll take that energy all day long from Russia. Well, we'll take it via, however you have to get it. If it takes extra long because you're going to go through the Irish Sea and this, that, and the other and change flags a few times, it's okay. We'll still take it. And so if you're still buying it from Russia, then what good are the sanctions, right? Like, how can sanctions work then? This is all coming, mind you, as Donald Trump tries to deal with Putin, who he's like, oh, wait a second. I thought we kind of didn't want to continue having all this conflict, right, in Ukraine. And apparently Putin's like, yeah, whatever. Well, I mean, maybe not whatever. I mean, he's meeting with Steve Witkoff there, and they're trying to have some negotiation to avoid future tariffs on Russia, because Donald Trump has made it clear. President Trump has said, you know what, Russia, if you don't have some kind of path to peace overseas in Ukraine, then guess what? We're not going to continue doing business with you. So Donald Trump is getting a little tired of Putin. He's getting a little sick of this. And so now he's threatening sanctions. He's threatening tariffs as well, I should say, on, of course, Russia. And he put them in place today with India. So a 50% hike, that's pretty significant. So I think lesson learned, right? Everybody else around the world is like, oh, wait a second. Maybe I shouldn't be buying energy from a sanctioned nation if Trump is willing to say, I'm going to tariff you because of it. And it was a big part. He actually is quoted saying he doesn't want all of these shadow tankers, these Russian oil purchases going through. And these shadow tankers were right behind me, actually, in the Irish Sea, going right through, avoiding, say, the British Channel, because they were going to have too much in the way of security. And in some cases, you had these ships being escorted. In one case, this was interesting, by a Russian warship that was disguised as a fishing vessel. So again, all the flag changing, and they're pretending it's a fishing vessel, but it's really not. It's actually a warship. And so this was an issue. And he finally said, enough is enough. We know of 19 shadow fleet vessels that were in the Irish Sea, and we're going to do something about it. So India, hey, you want to buy cheap energy from Russia? Be our guest, but you're not going to buy other stuff. from us, not without a significant tax going on to it. So it's a big story. It's one that I'm proud that we brought you here first. Guarantee you didn't hear about that one anywhere else, right? You know, who else is traveling to the Irish Sea? Anyway, it's a big story. It's an important story. And the result of it, what we're looking at right now at this moment in time is the 50% tariffs going on to India. I'll tell you, here's the deal, guys. Sanctions only work when everybody is on board and everybody's sort of paying attention. And this leads me to none other than Letitia James, because Letitia James in New York was responsible for actually sort of, okaying the license to a particular bank, Standard Chartered Bank, actually, that had already been accused of violating sanctions. Yeah. And she renewed their license. And so now, according to a news story over in the Gateway Pundit, Letitia was actually briefed about it. She knew that this particular bank had a problem. And apparently they had 2 meetings back in February and March, and she knew about some $9.6 billion that was going through New York. This is like petrodollars, right? So it's coming from China and they're sending it to Iran, but they kind of have to launder it with somebody somewhere. And so they're going to this one bank, allegedly, per the report. It's actually tied up in court right now, and lots of allegations about this company. They should not have been quote unquote laundering the money. But here's the other thing. What the heck is Letitia James doing? Like okaying it. I mean, wouldn't you revoke the bank's license? That seems like the logical thing to do. I mean, you knew that this bank had had problems before. If you go back in time, they had actually been repeatedly fined, like big fines, big fines. One was over $1 billion. And so now I'm just like, all right, you know what? We got to clean up our act. So whether it's like not allowing the 19 shadow fleet vessels in the Irish Sea, and you know, kudos to Ireland for speaking up and saying, hey, this is not acceptable. We can't allow that. And we can't allow Letitia James to drop the ball because she's too fixated on doing other things. I mean, in other words, it all goes through her. She's the Attorney General in New York. She had the opportunity to revoke that bank's license. And now it's coming out that $9.6 billion was allegedly laundered through this bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and going to Iran. I mean, that is not okay. And I'm not going to say that she was getting a kickback or that her staff was getting a kickback. I mean, that would be quite an accusation, right? But somebody might want to, you know, make sure of that. Just saying. Again, I'm not going to accuse her of that because that would be pretty bad, right, if she was doing anything like that. But what I will accuse her at the very least of doing is not caring. Now, here's the question. Why wouldn't she care? I think I know why she wouldn't care. Because she's too obsessed with everything else, right? She has to go get Trump. And right now, her way to get Trump is to say, oh, well, you're holding out on benefits for illegal migrants, and that's a problem, and we're going to sue you for that one. That's the latest and greatest out of Letitia James. Here, watch.
Today, Attorney General Bonta, Attorney General Dana Nessel, and I are co-leading a coalition of our fellow Democratic attorneys general in suing this administration to protect SNAP and the sensitive personal information of all of its recipients. The federal government's demand that states turn over SNAP recipients' data is flat out illegal. In fact, our laws prohibit us from disclosing this SNAP data unless it is strictly necessary for administering the program. And in this case, it is not. This latest action from this administration is nothing more than an attempt to sow fear and to cause chaos amongst vulnerable populations. And we are suing to uphold the rule of law, to protect the sensitive personal information of everyone who receive SNAP benefits, and ensure that this administration
I
does not
she's not winning a lot of friends on this one, because her own hometown newspaper here, the New York Post, is like, Letitia, you got to get your priorities straight. In fact, they're pointing out that SNAP fraud is actually $10 billion a year and rising. And why wouldn't you actually want to curb some of that? Why would you be out there trying to protect people who might be getting benefits illegally? Why wouldn't you actually want to work with law enforcement on that? Well, I think we know why, right? Because, and I'm going to read from the op-ed, they say James is eager to counter everything Trump, and she's insisting as a result that the Fed's request for SNAP data is simply more of the president's cruel and chaotic immigration agenda and unacceptable. A favorite Tishism. So, I would just say, hey, let's get back to business. Let's actually focus on things that really do actually have an impact, Letitia. I mean, things like, I don't know, the $9.6 billion that allegedly went to Iran through New York. I mean, that kind of seems like a thing that you don't want to miss. Just saying, right? Just saying. You are the AG of New York, and I realize you have your priorities, but they're a little wacky. They're just a little bit messed up. Anyway, it's great to have you guys all here, and thank you for everything you do. I mean, look, we're climbing. We're getting near 1 million. AJ just wants to hear me say La Monica, right? Because it's such a fun name to say. What a lady she is. Anyway, Marlene, thank you. And Mike Costa, good to see you here again. Look, I think that there's so much happening, and it's intense, right? Like, it's intense. The speed at which all of this is happening is pretty massive, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue, not to overwhelm us, because we're never overwhelmed here. Although, sometimes the audio can get to me. Charlotte, thanks again. And by the way, Giovanna, thank you. Oh, you're very sweet. Well, I don't know. I do think LaMonica's in a terrible amount of trouble. We'll see what happens on that front. It is good to have you, as I said, and we will be back here live with you again. Hopefully tomorrow. I am traveling, believe it or not, again tomorrow. Make sure you hit the bell. That way you really know, you get the alert to know when I'm here live. It's important that you do that. Make sure you subscribe, and we will talk very, very soon.